Hi, Stitchers. Welcome to Tatreez Talk, where we share conversations about Palestinian embroidery. Join me, Lena, and my co-host Amani as we chat with talented embroiderers and artists, sharing their stories, inspirations, and the cultural significance behind their work. Fellow listeners, grab your Tatreez project, thread your needle, press play, and let the stories unfold, one stitch at a time.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Tatreez Talk. On today's episode, we're chatting with our good friend Bayan from the Badan Collective. Bayan is a Palestinian writer, poet, licensed social worker, Tatreez instructor, and founder of Badan Collective, a creative design house and educational space for Palestinian embroidery. Welcome to Tatreez Talk, Bayan. We love having you.
I'm so excited to be here, guys. I can't wait. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, Akid. We love having you on, and I'm sure we said it already, but I know we can go for hours talking, so we'll definitely have you again. I already know that.
I know. This is like we always have conversations that last for hours, and I feel like it's about time somebody finally recorded us talking.
Yes, record our nerd out sessions.
So, Bayan, your intro is quite extensive. There is so much that we can talk about, but let's maybe start with telling us about what brought you to Tatreez. You learned at a younger age, right?
Yes, so I did learn from my mom when I was younger. I don't think a lot of people know this because I don't come off this way, but I grew up in Jordan actually. So I was born in the States and then we went to Jordan for 6 years and then we came back. And so while we were there, it was more organic for us to just kind of walk into like a random bookstore. And my mom just picked up these what are called kanavat. They are just small square, maybe like 5 by 5 patches that you pick up and you stitch, and they are not necessarily Tatreez patterns. They have random photos on them. I remember like the first one I ever did was like a duck. Yeah, that's how I learned Tatreez. I was a duck. That was my first image, and like a fish and a house and like a mosque and just random images. And my mom bought 12 of those. She bought 6 of them for my sister and 6 of them for me. They came like 12 in a pack. And she taught the both of us at the same time. And then my sister didn't have any patience, so she kind of just dropped it. And then I did all 6 of mine. And then I just stole my sister's other 6. And I ended up doing them all. And then I kept going. I don't know. People always ask me, like, why'd you keep going? It's like, so what made you keep going? And I'm like, I was just a stubborn 10, 11-year-old girl. I was like, don't knock 10, 11 stubborn-year-old girls. They grow up to be, really amazing people. Not that I'm, saying that about myself. But
You
like,
are
amazing. I know.
Flex on us, girl. It's fine.
I know. But I kept going for 12 years after that. I ended up getting more of them. And I just stitched on Ida cloth and I ended up creating it into a quilt. I wonder if I have it to show you guys, but I ended up creating like 28 patches and I made it into a quilt. So I have that. And then I think when I finished it, it was a 12-year project. So I stitched 3 to 4 of those every year for 12 years. And was very consistent, very patient with it. And then I took a break at 22. That's when I finished it. I started at 11 and went until I was, or 10 and finished at 22. And then I took a break. I got my master's and then Tatreez came back into my life really, really organically. I think maybe in 2021, 2020, when I started learning from my aunt, who Lena knows very well too, because she interviewed us. I know. And I think those moments are so precious because I don't think I would have naturally had that conversation with my aunt had you not been like, let me sit the both of you down and talk. And I just started learning from her more. She's an amazing Tatreez artist within her own right. And then it just snowballed and I was like, let me just start a business, just for fun.
Just casually.
Yeah, just casually. Even Badan happened very, very naturally, very organically, which I think for me is a testament to like how, there's like a saying that you will never find peace in something you're not meant to settle in. And I for so long, I did so many things in my work, work career, and I never felt settled ever. And Tatreez just came back into my life so naturally, so organically, so beautifully that it just settled. And I feel like if this is my contribution to my community, the Tatreez community, and then the, Palestinian and Muslim community at large, then that's great. That's what I'll do. And I just, hopefully we continue to grow. So yeah.
Yeah. Wait, so before we jump into like Badan and all the topics, I'm just really curious. When did you first do a Tatreez motif then?
When a Tatreez motif
Yeah.
specifically for like Palestinian.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what? That was probably when I got back into it. When I was
Wow,
older, when I
yeah.
was 23. So I knew the technique and I did a
Yeah.
lot of, again, a lot of random images like Palestinian flag, right? Like all these images, but
Okay.
an actual Palestinian motif, I don't think I did until I started the waist canvas. That was my
Oh,
first
wow.
project back into
Yeah.
Tatreez. And so I did some motifs. I made a shoulder shawl.
A shawl, yeah.
Um, yeah, and that was one of my first like introductions into it. So yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Wow.
Actually, your story is really similar to mine because I learned cross stitch basically from my mom. I used to
Yeah.
do and I literally have exactly what duck you're talking about in my mind because I did that duck when I was like 13 as well. So yeah, that's so
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. No.
That's so cute. I love that. Okay, Bayan, I'm curious too. Like you said that you got back into it when you were a little older in your 20s, and through your aunt. Like what sparked that?
I couldn't tell you. I really couldn't. I have this theory that it wasn't just me. I have
Mm,
this theory that there was something in the air that happened in 2021, especially after everything that happened in Sheikh Jarrah.
mm-hmm.
For me, it was a deeply personal experience. But I think in the collective, like at large, there was something in the air that was shifting, and I noticed it and I picked up on it. But I also think, so that played a role, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people wanting to get back into Tatreez. But for me, I think it was more personal than that. I was just having a conversation with somebody about just art in general, not just Tatreez, but in regards to my poetry and other things. And I was telling her that it's not really the art. Like I never sought out, let me go do Palestinian Tatreez. It was like um had to go through a lot of healing. I went through a difficult couple of years, and then um I had to heal a lot, and I just felt like I was very disconnected from my heart. So I think when I reconnected with my heart, it just kind of like all these passions that I was passionate about, it's like I always was doing them, but I was able
Mm-hmm.
to really give them a light. And I remember vividly because I had this quilt that I just mentioned, but it was like stored. And I remember once I felt like I was really healed and really connected to my heart, and I was like, I remember pulling it out, and I was like, wow, like why was I searching for things my whole life? Like this has been here the whole time, like right under my nose. How did I not know that this was kind of my calling in a way? So yeah, I think for me when we're approaching art, for me it's like yeah, it's really about it just being a passion and like how it just came from the heart, and being disconnected from my heart for so long, I was distant from it. And so when I reconnected, it reconnected to me.
That's
Wow, I
beautiful.
love that. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's really
The
powerful.
poet coming out,
I
the
know.
poet showing up.
We love to see it. We love to see it. And I mean, from there, I guess transitioning to Beden, how, like, what would you say? Because I mean, you create really, really beautiful pieces. You create,
Thank you.
like, if for those of you who don't know, Bayan, she runs Beden. She has kits for beginners, for more intermediate and advanced folks. She now has these cute needle menders that I'm obsessed with as well. I have mine, and as well as teaching. But your work is really beautiful, and it
Thank
feels,
you.
at least to me, it feels very like at home. It feels very
Yeah.
Palestinian, like in a lot of ways. Like I see the tradition, but I also see the modernization. And I'm just curious from a design perspective, like as you create these pieces, and I know you're also working on your own thobes as you create pieces for
Yeah.
yourself, like what's your design inspiration?
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I really appreciate that. That like was so wholesome to hear. I feel like there's so much there. I think for me, yeah, I think for me, Tatris is like a safe space. And I do feel like it's like a safe home, kind of like how you were saying, So even through my workshops or anything like that, I do try to be and build like a safe space for our community because we don't have a lot of safe spaces where we can just come and like talk, not even talk about things, but just
Hmm.
be in community together.
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
think it is that safe place. So I'm glad that that comes across. But for me, the design inspo, whenever I do design something like the even the chess panel series that I just did, which is the for the Tatreez kits,
Hmm.
I think for me, I am more like a, I don't know, I love more traditional designs
Hmm.
and reconnecting it. So yes, there's like that modernization element, but I love studying those like historical dresses and kind of finding inspo from that. And then so there's that. There's always like a historical element to the designs that I do, and I want to keep that intact because my whole thing with Badan is that you can it's the reason of the name as well, which I can explain the name, but you can disconnect us from the land, but you cannot disconnect us from our traditions. And so, in that way, we are disconnected here in the diaspora from this history. Like, can you imagine if there was a continuation of 1948 till today? We would have
Hmm.
had so much innovation in the Tatreez
Yes.
world, but because there was that expulsion and because there was that disconnection, we have to reconnect first, and then we can kind of continue to innovate. And so I think that's where I come at it from. So I think there's that. And then the other element is for me, really connecting to like my environment, which now that I think about it is very, very Tatreez like. It's how women used to design their thobes. But I really like playing with my senses, like what's around me, how can I tell a story through this? What message am I trying to drive? I don't really like just drawing something to mean anything. And maybe that is like the poet in me coming out. But you can just have Tatreez be pretty. Like it
Hmm.
can just be pretty. That's totally fine. But I like to infuse meaning into mine because I believe things are they can be inherently meaningless, right?
Hmm.
We are the ones that experience life, and through our experiences, we attribute meaning to certain things. So when I design something, I place it in a certain way, I make it a certain color, and I'm infusing that meaning in there. And then people can grapple with that meaning in their own experiences. And they can choose to see it or they cannot, but like, that infusion is there. So yeah, I think I would say that it's a combination of a couple of things.
That's incredible, Bayan. Thank you for sharing. And actually, I am curious. Could you share? I actually know this, but for our listeners, could you share the meaning behind Badan?
Yeah. Okay, yes, definitely. So Badan has a twofold meaning. So in Arabic, it literally is just the word body, like your jism, your badan, your body, the literal word of body. But in the Tatreez world, at least where I'm from in near Ramallah, I'm from Silwad near Ramallah, we have about 9 pieces of a thobe. So the dress is never really stitched. For those who don't know, it's never really stitched in one piece. It's cut up into pieces. Some regions even have up to like 22, 23 pieces. But where I'm from, they usually have about 9 pieces. You have the two sleeves, so that's 1 and 2. You have the chest panel, so that's 3. You have 4 banayak, 4 side skirt parts, right? So that's 4, 5, 6, 7. And then you have the front skirt part and the back skirt part, which is the majority of the thobe, and that is referred to as the badan, or the front badan and then the back badan. And so for me, when I was coming up with a name, I was, going back and forth between so many names, and I wanted something super unique, but also something that meant something to me. And when I made that click, like when it clicked in my mind that this is a badan and it's also the body, and I was like, wait, hold on. This is really great because I thought our badan isn't just something we wear on our thobe. Like it's not, our tatriz is not just something we wear, but it actually is our body and it comes with us. And you can disconnect us from the land, but you can never ever disconnect us from our traditions because it is us. We will forever carry it on our bodies and inside of us.
Yes, I absolutely love that. And honestly, like I have personally, I feel like I've always been very connected to my identity, but when I started Tatreez, like that connection was next level. So
Yeah.
I really resonate with that a
Mm.
lot. So, Bayan, I definitely want to talk to you about your experience as a Tatreez teacher. I know that you go all over the country teaching, all over the US teaching Tatreez classes in person, and you're definitely building a Badan community. And just love to hear a little bit about that experience and what your vision is as well for the Badan Tatreez community that you're building.
Yes, no, I love how you frame that as a community. And I am trying to build a larger community through Badan for sure. It's one of our goals. But I think eventually it all funnels up into this big, beautiful Tatreez community that we have, not only in the US, but I think just in the diaspora at large. And I that's just my contribution to it. So, there's so much there. I really value in person workshops because it just there's something different about being connected to someone in together in person, and even teaching wise to just say like, hey, can I just see what you're working on, especially because Tatreez is
Mm-hmm.
so tiny, to really help course correct them. You can't just get that virtually, and I've been asked to do virtual workshops very often, and I still think about doing them here and there, but I think I value the in-person workshops a lot, and that's why I launched a tour the past summer, and then I still travel a lot to teach these workshops, and I really, really, every single workshop always brings me back to life. There's always some element of community that is built there, and I think it's so amazing, like to see that when I leave. Like for example, one of the most recent workshops I did was in Ohio, and I come in and I sometimes do these one-off workshops or like maybe two workshops with the same community. But it's really heartwarming to see when they were like, "Oh my God, like why were we never doing this? Like we need to meet monthly
Mm,
now. Now we all know how
yeah.
to do it. Let's meet monthly." And that happened in Ohio. It was so funny. The same conversation happened at five different tables, and then they all came and told me about it. And I was like, "Guys,
I love
get
it.
together and
Talk to each other.
meet." Yes, and they started it. I don't know if they followed through with it, but they definitely connected, and it was so nice. And I think when I started Badan, one of our missions, right, or the statement that I wrote out was to ignite the passion and love for Tatreez in the hearts of people in the diaspora. And I love, love, love seeing that ignite in people, and to say, wow, like I didn't know this. Now that I do, and I have the tools and the access to it, how can I meet with my own community? How can I take this to the farthest that I can take it? And it's always so nice to see, everybody has different skills and things that they bring to the table, and it's like they are just missing the beginning part, right? They're missing the tools, or
Mm,
missing the
yeah.
access, right? It's that disconnect from the land. And it's like, ugh, it's like I'm getting chills saying this, but just like giving them that connection back, and letting them run with it. And it's especially heartwarming when someone comes up to me at their workshop and they'll say, um, my grandma always wanted to teach me this,
Mm,
but either she doesn't, she's too old now, or she's passed away and she didn't get a chance to. And thank you so much for this. And my response always is, like, good, you've learned it here, and now you're going to go do this. You go do this to keep the practice in your family alive. And it's just such a beautiful, beautiful thing to see. And I think yeah, I think especially after COVID, we all in a way have started to value community a lot more. And
yeah.
Tatriz is just one way that we can be together, and in a way heal and be in safe environments and just be together in spaces with like-minded people. It's just such a beautiful thing to see.
Bayan, do you have any tips or suggestions for people who want to create these self-study circles in their own communities? Like, has there been anything that you've seen that works really well?
Yeah, I mean, there's that's such an interesting question. I think I think the one thing that you really need is a space and enough interest, right?
Yeah.
I think that's really all you need. If you have a person, one or two people who can ideally run the group, that helps, because if it's too much of a hodgepodge situation, I think then no one follows through. But I think if you have someone who is willing to start it, you have a space or multiple spaces that you can use. I've even seen people use their homes and things like that. And enough interest, and the interest is
Yeah.
there. I think it's just do it. Like, don't overthink it, just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. The don't overthink it part. I need to
Yeah.
listen to that part a lot.
Yes, Amani, just do it.
Well, no, definitely. I mean, we started a Tatreez circle here in the Bay Area, and it was kind of like after the conversation of like, we should do it, we should do it. And then it was like, it doesn't get out of the group chat, right? And
Yeah,
it
yeah.
finally got out of the group chat, and now it's like, all
Yes.
right, it is, like you said, it's very easy. Like, if you have a space,
Yeah.
that's really what you need, because once people find out about it, they will come. Like, we had
Yeah.
somebody to our first Tatreez circle who now comes regularly. She found out about the Tatreez circle by, I think she said she Googled it, and like just Googled like Bay Area Tatreez, and drives like an hour and a half to come,
Wow.
because she doesn't have she lives
Yeah.
kind of far out and doesn't have
Yeah.
a community. And yeah, it makes, like, community makes the world of a difference. And I feel like Tatreez is a very easy way to build and encourage community.
Yeah, 100%. I always say, like, in these community spaces, it's so nice because, yes, we're coming together to share our love for like this craft and this cultural practice, but what we're doing is so much more. Like, in my conversations when I've been at Tatreez monthly meetings is, you don't just, you come and you stitch, yes, and that's important, yes, and that's healing in of itself, yes. But you're also talking about who just had a baby and
Yeah.
who got sick and
Yeah.
whose grandma passed away and who just got a job and who like all these things that help
Sharing
you.
each other with tips and tricks with each
Yeah.
other too. Yeah.
Yeah, and that really is the community village kind of element that we're so sorely lacking here, at least in the US, in the diaspora, just because of the way that our systems and society is set up.
Yeah.
And so I think it's like it's so small, it's so small, but it is how we function as human beings. And this, I think that's why Tatreez resonates with so many of us.
Yeah, definitely. Shifting gears just a little bit. The three of us all, we do work that really aims to make the Tatreez more accessible to people and like really bringing it into a bigger audience. You've talked about that a little bit, Bayan, with what you're doing with Badan. And so I think a lot of questions come with that, including around the ethics of how people should engage with the Tatreez, both Palestinians and non-Palestinians. And Bayan, I'm sure you get this question all the time, especially since you do teach Tatreez. So let's start here. If someone isn't Palestinian and they want to learn and practice Tatreez, is that okay? How do we feel about that?
Okay, so first of all, the answer is yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Tatreez is something for everyone to practice. I have a lot of non-Palestinians that do come to my classes and to these spaces, and of course asking on Instagram, especially with everything that has been happening in Gaza and the assault on Gaza. People have been really there. Again, there's this ignition that's been happening, not just for Tatreez, but for other cultural practices. So I think there is a genuine interest in it, and I really applaud the people who have been asking, because that already shows that you're being intentional about it.
Agreed.
We recently created a post on our Instagram about how to engage with Tatreez as a non-Palestinian. But I think, for non-Palestinians and Palestinians alike, I really want to just explore this idea of the ethics of engaging with Tatreez in general. How do we engage Tatreez? How should we engage with Tatreez? And not in a way that there's a right or a wrong, but what is the best way to engage with this as people of the diaspora, especially as we are not in the land, especially as we are not, for example, Palestinians on the ground under occupation. How do we engage with this? And I think there are some guidelines, and I think please feel free to reference that post for more information. But I think for me, what it comes down to is the intention behind your engagement with Tatreez. You know, what is your intention, right? To be intentional and reflective about how we engage with it is so incredibly important. And to acknowledge the origins of Tatreez as having Palestinian history, right? We want to be careful though there too, because Tatreez is cross stitch, and it has origins and it has history in Palestine, and it is a Palestinian craft. But we need to be mindful about not bashing other people and other cultures as well, because cross stitch does exist in different areas of the world, and it does have different histories as well. You know, even for example, recently I just did a class with Vela about Syrian cross stitch. And Syrians also have history with Tatreez. You know, they're very close to that region and they have their own history and their own practices. And I think often when we see dresses, Syrian dresses, people are very quick to label something like, that's Palestinian. And it's like, guys, let's slow down, let's be intentional, let's be reflective, and let's learn a little bit of the historical significance here and the history of the region and of the land. So learning the history is important. Being intentional is incredibly important. And so learning the history is incredibly important. Being intentional is incredibly important. And I like to think of Tatreez as a passion, right? For me, it's a passion that comes from my heart. And when I think about being intentional about it, what I mean is like, you know, for me, when I create Tatreez pieces or when I teach Tatreez, what I'm really doing here is I'm sharing my heart with you. And I think if we think about it in that way, right? How do I receive someone's heart? How do I receive someone's passion? How do I receive that? How should I receive that? Right? It's not just something I learn so I can go and, you know, and just leave the room with and do and however I want with it. But how do I receive someone's heart here? And that's just not saying it about me, but I think, and I'm not speaking for all Palestinians, but I think in a way we can ask ourselves, this is Palestinians' heart and soul. How can I, whether I'm Palestinian or non-Palestinian, receive that heart and soul with intentionality, ethically, and in a way that I can do it honor and do it justice? And I think if we start there and we really have that conversation in our communities, I think that will tell us all that we need to know. So yeah.
I really appreciate that. And we'll definitely reference the post in the show notes. But one thing that you did put in the post, which is a carousel post that I very much appreciate, you noted here about, to those who've been silent these past few months, don't participate in our arts if you cannot stand loudly and firmly with us when our people are being slaughtered. Our bodies are not separated from our arts. Our culture is not up for exploitation. Palestine is not a trend. And I really love that, because I always say, and I feel this very deeply in my heart and soul, that Tatreez is political. Tatreez is a part of Palestinian resistance, and Tatreez will be a part of Palestinian liberation. And what you said earlier about non-Palestinians who ask about it, I feel this. I think Lena and I obviously both feel the same way, and we have had non-Palestinians who ask, and those are definitely people who are clearly intentional with what they want to do and how they want to show up for us. And, you know, for the people who do not, whether they are Palestinian or not, because let's be honest, there are some Palestinians who do not show up. And so I just love the fact that in that statement, you are intertwining our art with our liberation. I love that.
Yeah, I thank you so much for that. And I think it's so true because, again, you know, just because we just mentioned this about what the word Badan means, if we really, really think about Tatreez being like skin for Palestinians, and Palestinians wherever we are in the world, whether you're in Gaza or you're in occupied lands or you're in the diaspora, we require liberation as a people. And if Tatreez is our skin, is our body, our arts also require liberation. And I think that we cannot separate those two things. You cannot. And I think as we engage with, as we wear, as we learn Tatreez, it's incredibly important to make sure that we acknowledge the origins and that we give Palestinians their due in recognizing their history and in recognizing their fight for freedom. And I think that that is so important. Tatreez is so many things. It is a passion and it does come from the heart, but it is also very much so an act of resistance. And I think one of the things that will help us as a society prepare ourselves for a future community, for a future society that is soon coming, and that society will be one of a free Palestine, right? That's what I believe is the role of the arts. It's a preparation, right? For a lot of people will always ask, when things are happening, like right now, what's happening in Gaza? Well, it seems pointless. What's the role of the art? Why am I doing Tatreez right now? You're preparing yourself for a free society. That's what you're doing. And I think in that way, if we think about it in that way, we are not just stitching something beautiful. We're not just coming together to stitch a craft and pick pretty colors and put it on a wall. And it can be that. It can be that because Tatreez for me is a passion. It's also a way of life, right? But to approach it intentionally is to also think about the people that have done so much to preserve this for us, many of whom have been expelled, many of whom have been martyred as well. I mean, you think about Majdalawi fabric. Someone just recently asked me about that because we launched Saya fabric in the shop to make that more accessible for us in the diaspora, and they were asking about Majdalawi fabric, and for me that was an incredibly difficult thing to grapple with, how to make a fabric produced by Majdalawi families. And if you don't know the history of Majdal, it is non-existent now. It is completely erased off of the map, and those families have been expelled, and they've also been pushed down into Gaza. And when you think about, okay, I'm offering this now to be accessible in the diaspora, and I have no idea if the families that just created this piece of fabric that I have in my hands is still alive, I think it gives you pause. We cannot practice Tatreez in the diaspora without acknowledging where it comes from. And again, people can approach it however they do. You can't control people's perception of things. But for us to start this conversation on how we can better engage with Tatreez in a meaningful way, in a way that does Palestinians justice, in a way that honors their traditions, and in a way that helps Palestinians preserve their craft, right? We start this conversation in our communities. I think it will do so much volumes for everybody that's new, that's just now getting into it, and people who have been here, who have been practicing it for a while.
And for people, for people who are new, or even just people who are on their Tatreez journeys and who are ready to dive in more and learn more the history and gain the knowledge, what are your recommendations of where people should kind of dive in?
Yes, 100%. So there is two elements to Tatreez for me. There is the technique, which I think there are multiple resources out there, including Badan, but there's so much more. And there's places to learn the technique. The other fold, which I do include a small portion in my workshops, which is the history portion, which is what you're asking about. But even myself, I can only cover so much. My workshops are 3 hours long, but there's only a 30 to 40-minute portion in the beginning about history, and that is nowhere near enough. And so I really encourage people to read. I encourage people to learn. And I think places like this podcast are a really great place. I think I would follow along with all the Tatreez artists that are online right now, because I think our Tatreez community its heart is starting to beat, and it's coming alive. And so many of us are developing so many resources for the community. So I would follow along there. And I would highly, highly encourage following the museums. There's two Palestinian museums. There's one in Connecticut and there's one in DC. And there's also the Tiras Center that's based in Amman in Jordan. So I'd follow along with them. And they also sell a lot of books as well. So I would highly encourage grabbing some books and sitting and learning and grappling with the history of Palestinian embroidery and also the history of Palestine in general. There are so many book recommendations about the history of Palestine in general over the last 100 years that will give you context for the embroidery. And there's movies as well that we can watch to give us more context on that. So the resources are there, and I think books are a really, really, really great place to start.
Yeah, I definitely dove into the collecting Tatreez books journey when I first started
Yeah.
Tatreez, and now it's a little bit easier to find,
Yeah.
but we'll definitely include some resources of various books that we love and that you can still get. So Bayan, I mean, this has been amazing and we could talk to you forever and we're 100%, we already know we're going to have you back. But
Yeah.
anything else that you can share with our listeners that you want to share that, you just want to speak from your heart?
Yeah, so I mean, I would just say, please join us. Please join us in this very large, big, beautiful collective movement to keep Tatreez thriving in the diaspora. Even if one or two or 10 or 50 of us practiced and kept this alive, it still would not be enough. It needs to be a collective movement. And that is something that I stand by. And I really hope that I can contribute to that and that, we can learn and continue to learn Tatreez. But I encourage you to join us and to keep these traditions alive and thriving until we
Yes.
can get back to a free Palestine.
Yes, join us, and then we can all stitch together in a free Palestine, inshallah.
Yeah, can you imagine? Oh my
Oh,
gosh, yes.
that would be the best Tatreez circle ever.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Honestly.
Bayan, where can everyone find you?
Yes, so we are definitely on Instagram. So you can find us on Instagram at Badan Collective. And also that's our handle for TikTok. And we also have a website. It's badancollective.com. We share most things there, whether it's upcoming classes, which we have so many coming up in the spring and in the summer for 2024, and some really, really exciting projects that are coming up as well. So we announce everything. It's located on the website. We have a mailing list that you can also join. And of course, we always make announcements on Instagram as well.
Another great episode. I loved having Bayan, and also because we know her pretty personally, Amani. It was nice to hear more from her around her story. I actually didn't know all the details, so I loved learning something new about her.
I know, I did not realize that she stopped at Tatreez for so long and didn't start until, her early 20s again. So
And she didn't start, she exploded.
she exploded. That's true. I was going to say it's so
Yeah.
impressive because, mashallah, that girl is so damn talented. Like,
Yes.
her work is beautiful. Her design work is beautiful. She's just like, has so much knowledge. She's a beautiful soul. We love her. Our Tatreez sister,
Yes.
which I know sounds culty, but I love that. I love our little Tatreez cult that I'm trying to create.
I'm not mad about it either, as long as I can be included.
Ave, girl, Ave. No, but it was great. And I just, gosh, she really is a poet. I really loved
Yeah.
everything she had to say about Tatreez and the art being connected to the land and to our identity. I so resonate with that extremely hard. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, it's so powerful. So I loved it. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, and I think with the times that we're living in, this type of conversation is so critical, especially thinking about the ethics and who has the right to practice, who has the right to wear Tatreez. Like, those are really important questions to tackle as we're seeing literally the erasure of the Palestinian people in Gaza and the West Bank. And I'm really happy that we have this space to actually have start the conversation and, hopefully inspire everyone else to just learn about the history and learn about the origins of this art form and our people, ultimately.
Definitely. And I know we mentioned it when we were talking to Bayan, but like, I sell kits and patterns, you sell patterns, and you do Tatreez classes. So we do get questions all the time,
Yes.
especially right now with this focus on Palestine. Like we get questions from people, non-Palestinians all the time about engaging with Tatreez. And I want to reiterate again, like we appreciate you all. The fact that you even asked, the fact that you're concerned about appropriating our art just
Yeah.
lets us know right off the bat that you have the good intentions and you're coming to this art with a pure heart. So we appreciate you and respect you and love you. And we have some non-Palestinians in our little Tatreez sisterhood, and we love them. They're the homies, and
100%, 100%.
they're amazing. So we definitely encourage everyone to participate in Tatreez, Palestinians and non-Palestinians. Art, what is it? Art transcends borders. That's what the lingo is. So yeah. Anything else from you, Lena, before we say bye to the listeners today?
No, I think I'm going to be thinking about this for a little while now tonight with my dinner. So it was such a great conversation as always.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much again for listening to Tatreez Talk. We want to hear about your Tatreez journeys. So share your stories with us. Our email is tatreeztalk@gmail.com. We might even have you on an upcoming episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite listening platform and be sure to leave a 5-star rating. Of course, you can follow me at Min Amani and Lena at Lena Stob, and be sure to follow the pod at Tatreez Talk. We'll talk to you soon.